taught us all how to hope and how to love, how to win and how to lose. He taught us how to live, and finally, he taught us how to die.
The joy of his memory will last far longer than the pain and sorrow of his leaving.
It was on this same Sunday night, 1 year ago, when these steps were filled with a sea of frozen faces. The cold was numbing. Dallas had just beaten Denver in the Super Bowl. The night was made for staying home. Yet here they were, huddled together for warmth and for comfort. Strangers, for the most part, drawn together by a man most of them had never met. Children even, unseen in the crunching crowd clinging to hands. All night long, they trudged these steps, quietly but not somberly. Once in a while, someone would start to sing, others would join in, and then the song would die out in the cold night air. Tonight, we're going to step back 1 year in time to relive some of the poignant moments of that January week.
A WCCO television news special report is brought to you in part by Northwestern Bell with this helpful reminder that long distance is good business.
When I'm playing football, I spend a lot of time on the road. But during the off season, I take it easy and take care of business right here by long distance. It's the way to get things done today. Saves me time, money, and legwork. Long distance is good business. Oh, don't tell the guys in Dallas about Mickey, okay? Okay?
Long distance is good business.
Often I've heard professional, you be the buyer or the seller. What's the difference? Well, if you're the buyer, I'll help you get the house that's just right for you. And if I'm the seller, I'll show up your house, take care of all these papers, and help close the sale. I won't have to do hardly anything. That's the whole idea. Oh, congratulations.
Century 21. We know how to close a sale. For you.
Each office independently owned.
You had everything ready to move. The last time most of us ever saw Hubert Humphrey alive was here at home in Waverly, 3 days after Christmas, 1977, and 16 days before his death. 3 Minnesota Vikings, Carl Eller, Alan Page, and Jim Marshall, had stopped by to give Hubert a personalized Vikings jersey and to chat about their forthcoming NFC championship game with Dallas. The gaunt face and body were more telling than the medical reports. Hubert Humphrey knew it would not be much longer, but even then he tried hard to listen, to smile as best he could. Even then he talked not about his own struggle, but about the character and the tenacity of the Vikings. Hubert Humphrey faced death as he had lived his life, with steadiness and resolve, and as much good humor as he could muster.
Hubert had said he didn't want sadness. He hoped that it wouldn't be, a sad funeral. We really and truly never talked about his dying, but I knew that he didn't want it to be sad. And we had talked a great deal about various funerals over the years. And both of us had felt that it should be a celebration of a kind, because it's a part of life, birth and death. And it was sad and it was emotional, but it had a celebration feeling about it. And I feel that way about the year later, that for it to be a remembrance is fine, but I want it to be a further remembering of what Hubert stood for. I think that's what's truly important.
אנחנו כרגע מנהלים פה מלחמה. אנחנו נאבקים פה באמת על החיים שלנו.
כל הציר מאוים, כל האזור מאוים.
מוקד מלחי 776 מחבלים.
Sunday morning in Washington a year ago dawned bright but crisp, a sharp contrast to the snowy, blustery weather of the day before, when the body of Hubert Humphrey was returned from Minnesota to Washington. It was a composed, collected Muriel Humphrey who climbed the steps of the Capitol, which Hubert knew so well and loved so much. A composure that was to remain intact through the stresses and strains of that long weekend. For hours before, through the night, thousands of other mourners had climbed the same steps. And now it was the turn of the who's who of Washington, the presidents and congressmen and Supreme Court justices, political foes and allies alike, who shared, if not love, then respect for Hubert Humphrey. It was President Carter, in fact, who that day said Humphrey may have blessed this country more than any of the presidents he served. This ceremony at the U.S. Capitol was the first formal tribute to Hubert Humphrey, and as one watched, one had the feeling we were all sharing in a very special and meaningful moment. It was but a blink in the eye of events, but the image lingers on.
Maria, gratia plena. Even though this is one of the saddest moments of my life, and I feel as great a loss as I've ever known, we must remind ourselves of Hubert's last great wish, that this be a time to celebrate life and the future, not to mourn the past and his death. Hubert will be remembered by all of us who served with him as one of the greatest legislators in our history. He will be remembered as one of the most loved men of his time. And even though he failed to realize his greatest goal, he achieved something much more rare and valuable than the nation's highest office. He became his country's conscience. He cried in public and without embarrassment. In his last major speech in his beloved Minnesota, he wiped tears from his eyes and said, "A man without tears is a man without a heart." If he cried often, it was not for himself, but for others. Above all, Hubert was a man with a good heart. And on this sad day, it would be good for us to recall Shakespeare's words. A good leg will fall. A straight back will stoop. A black beard will turn white. A curled pate will grow bald. A fair face will wither. A full eye will wax hollow. But a good heart is the sun and the moon, or rather the sun and not the moon, for it shines bright and never changes, but keeps his course truly. Hubert's heart kept its course truly. He taught us all how to hope and how to love, how to win and how to lose. He taught us how to live, and finally, he taught us how to die.
When he first visited me in the Oval Office, I felt that he should have served there. His greatest personal attribute was that he really knew how to love. There was nothing abstract or remote about it. He did not love humanity only in the mass. You could feel it in the scope of his concern, in his words, in the clasp of his hand, in the genuine, eager interest in his eyes as he looked at you. He always spoke up for the weak and the hungry and for the victims of discrimination and poverty. He never lost sight of our own human possibilities. He never let us forget that in our democratic nation, we are a family, bound together by a kinship of purpose and by mutual concern and respect. He reminded us that we must always protect and nurture the other members of our national family.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties across the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on me, and
body of Hubert Humphrey was returned to the state capitol in St. Paul, where it would lie in state from late that Sunday afternoon until midday on Monday. There's no real tally of how many Minnesotans braved the intense cold outside to pass by the casket, but the stream never seemed to end, ebbing only in the middle of the night, but flowing on again in the morning. Thousands, certainly, who felt the tug and pull of the Humphrey memory, who may never really have known him in life, but who felt the need for a moment of nearness in death.
Christ was born across the sea with the glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me, as he died to make men holy. Let us live to make men free. Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
There was something in this land and its lakes and especially its people, that fed the springs of love, the streams of ideas, the torrents of enthusiasm, and which nurtured the special genius and the immense humanity of Hubert Humphrey. There was a kind of unity, of integrity in this love affair with the people of Minnesota that permitted Hubert's idealism to flower. He was a special man in a special place. And I know he would want me to say today, thank you, Minnesota. Muriel, you've heard words of praise for Hubert from many people and places. They are genuine and they reflect the deep affection for your husband and our friend. But beyond words, I think last night when we went to the state capitol and saw masses of people who stood for hours in the severe cold and burst into spontaneous song of celebration when you arrived, that this confirmed, if there was any doubt, and there's none, that this state loved Hubert in a very special way.
From the church, the funeral cortege came here to Lakewood Cemetery in Minneapolis. It was dusk by then, the darkness falling nearly as quickly as the temperatures. The end of a long day, a long weekend for the Humphrey family, for all of us really. Little left to be said or felt. Hubert Humphrey was now in history's hands. Winter keeps most people away from the Humphrey grave. Many more visitors in the summertime, but even then a mere trickle compared with the throngs that pass the Kennedy grave sites at Arlington. The Humphreys say they have plans to erect a more elaborate memorial here at the grave. Well, maybe one is needed. But we have a feeling that his life will be more lasting than stone or marble.
I kind of think she looks like me. I don't think she
Long distance, almost like being face to face.
What if you woke up tomorrow and it wasn't winter? It's summer in Phoenix, and Western's got a sunbreak vacation for you in Phoenix for only $90 plus airfare. 6 days, 5 nights at Phoenix for only $90. It's from Western Airlines, the only way to fly. Call your travel agent or Western Airlines. Double occupancy rates, airfare extra.
The Humphrey home in Waverly is much the same today as it was a year ago, but it is quieter. The passing months, the fresh fallen snow have softened the anguish of those year-old memories. Gone are the furtive comings and goings of the final days, the commotion and confusion of the final hours. It is peaceful and serene. And so, too, is the marvelous lady who continues to call this home. Muriel Humphrey, for 40 years, Hubert's wife, friend, and political confidant. Now his widow. The successor to his Senate seat, who chose to give up that seat rather than wage the exhausting political fight necessary to retain it in the Humphrey name. The year has passed almost without pause for Muriel Humphrey, and she told Karen Boris and me that only now is she coming to grips with her own life, her own future.
I first of all got to pull my life together, my personal life, and the offices had to be vacated, and so we have a lot of, I have one office now and one secretary, and we're trying to unclutter that. And there was a lot of, when you're into public life for 30 years, you know, there's an awful lot of things that gather together. And even though the Minnesota Historical Society had been taking papers and receiving various things off and on through the years, there was still an awful lot that had been sort of put up in the attic and put off in the various rooms and so forth, and things that we had hung on to. And we're pulling together still the files and so forth so that I can work out daily, do the work I need to do, and keep up with the mail. And yes, first of all, my homes, I've got, well, I kid myself, call myself the madam every now and then. I've got the big apartment in Washington. I have a nice, very convenient one in Minneapolis, and then this home here, and a guest house. So there are really 4 homes that I have to look after. But I have good help with it at this point. I'm selling the apartment in Washington, and I really kind of hate to do that. That's going to be a big job to move out of there. And then where will all the furniture from that house go? I don't know. So, you know, just moving and pulling my personal things and my personal life together this year is difficult. The residence here at Waverly is a big place. It's 20 acres out here, some 20, and I've thought of various ways to go with it. I talked at one time of, I thought it was a great idea to have it be a performing arts center, but I don't know. That's a big job, and there are lots of people that are very excited about that idea and would like to talk about it, but I haven't.
Have you discussed this with the State Arts Council?
I tell you, there hasn't been any money come up, and I'm sort of, I'm all right, but financially, but I am not wealthy enough that I can just turn it over and give it away. And I'm sort of what they say, real estate poor. So it's something that I will have to realize some value on. And what I really want to do is move in closer to Minneapolis and be not quite so far out and be closer to my kids.
Have you discounted politics altogether?
Oh, no, David. No way am I going to say that.
As a campaigner, not just as one who would volunteer or offer advice, but as someone
well, I don't
might
know.
run for public office.
I don't know. I'll be, if I build the home that I'm thinking of, I'll be in the 2nd district.
Did you get just...
Just from a lady who's reluctant to sell her Washington apartment.
Did you get enough of taste of the senatorial chambers to entice you?
Wait there? Well, I don't know that I'd like to run again. I might run for the state legislature. Mm-hmm. I've got a son that says, Mom, you'd be great in the state Senate. He said, why don't you run for Senate in the state? And I think I would enjoy it. It's a big job.
You're not making an announcement with that statement, are you?
No announcements. Besides that, I may just like having a good time and retiring.
Looking back at the Senate, would you have taken the Senate job if you had it to do over again?
I don't think so. Karen, I think I would have had a very difficult time running. There was so much that I wanted to do, and I wanted to be sure that I could do it. And so that, and I was new at the job. If I had been an old hand, you know, or say I'd had a year or year and a half there, I could have run a campaign and be in the Senate too, but there was no way that I could campaign and do the job I wanted to do in the Senate too. What I missed in Washington, I guess if I had been there longer, I would have been able to have relaxed more. But I was so involved in what I was doing, and I was so tired at night that I never went out socially. I was too tired to go to receptions or cocktail parties or dinners. Only 1 or 2 did I go to this year, and I was missing our friends, and I missed seeing friends, missed taking people to dinner, that sort of thing I needed to get back into. But I would end up, getting home at 8:30, 9 o'clock sometimes, and then I would stick a potato in the oven and take off my shoes, get a house coat on, and relax.
Would you take Kirpich's appointment again? Or individual?
Oh, yes. I'm so glad that I did. It was a fantastic experience. I think when I talked to you before, I said that it was the best thing that I could have done. A person going through that kind of trauma and emotional bad times, the best thing in the world is to stay busy. It also meant that I was a part of Hubert's life that way, and I didn't feel that I had lost him right away. I guess I still look for him to come around the corner somewhere and come walking in. I think that's a hard thing to get over with, but that's the stages that you go through.
Do you ever long to just sort of come home and do your grocery shopping and,
I love
that sort of thing, and just forget about all of it?
The ladies that wait on me in the store know that. They're awfully good to me. And I just bounce around and in and out of stores and on my own. And I love doing that. I love coming to Minneapolis and to my little towns around here. And people don't bother me a lot. I think they're a little surprised sometimes that I'm in there or something, especially out here in the country. Here, out around Waverly and Buffalo and in this area, people are very reserved. It's not a shyness, it's a reserve that they have. I told Mary Anderson when she came out here, I said, don't feel that people don't know you or don't know you're there. They do, but they respect you, and they respect your privacy. And if you want to be friendly with them, that's fine. Talk to them and so forth. But they don't feel it's polite to speak to you first. So, you have to kind of handle that. It's a little different in Minneapolis.
But do you think you could be content with that kind of, just being at home and, grandchildren? Or do you think
not sure. I like Washington, too. I always said I had the best of both lives, that I had the excitement of Washington, and then I had the contentment and the joy of being known and liked out here. I had a lovely experience in the grocery store the other day when I was getting my groceries put into the car. The little girl that had waited on me came rushing out, and I rolled the window down, and she said, Mrs. Humphrey, I just want to tell you that you're one of the greatest ladies I know. And she's a real young girl, and I thought, that just made Christmas for me. Wasn't that lovely?
Yeah. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, look at it. That brings tears to my eyes, because that is lovely.
Hello, Jenkins. How's business?
Like this elevator.
We're having a record month.
Oh, fine.
Making more sales, improving collections, expanding markets. Want to know how?
No. Yeah, I do.
We're using long distance. Maybe next time, Jenkins, I'll catch you on the way up.
Long distance is good business.
100 years ago, William Payne and Wallace Weber opened an investment firm.
Of course, we can't assure you that you'll make money.
But we'll try.
Thank you, Payne. Thank you, Weber.
Since then, we've tried to provide people with the best service.
Thank you, Payne Weber.
the best brokers,
Thank you, Penweather.
and the best research.
Thank you, Painweather.
A lot has changed in 100 years, but we still work hard to hear you say,
Thank you, Painweather.
talk to us now. You could thank us later. Payne Weber.
When Hubert Humphrey strode this campus in the early 30s, he was almost always broke. The Depression, in fact, forced him out of school for a few years and back to the family drugstore in South Dakota. These were hard times for Hubert Humphrey and for just about everybody else. At one point, after he'd come back to school and was trying to make ends meet, Muriel was making sandwiches for him to sell to other students for 10 cents apiece. Those days had a lasting impression on Hubert Humphrey and on the Institute of Public Affairs that bears his name here at the university.
He saw, and we shared the vision, of a high-quality public affairs institute that would attract and train people for public service at all levels of government, international, national, state, and local. He made a special point of encouraging us to bring together the financial resources that would make it easy for people who might not have the financial means to go to school to do so through Humphrey Fellowships. It was his vision, really, that public service careers be high quality, high status, rewarding careers, and he hoped that the financial obstacles would not be any kind of a deterrent to people for entering such careers.
Despite his own financial obstacles, Humphrey eventually graduated magna cum laude and was Phi Beta Kappa at the university. And he returned briefly to the classroom in 1968 after his presidential defeat to teach at McAllister and the university.
Hubert Humphrey was a man of many talents and wide-ranging interests, and at times he was criticized for popping in and out of issues and raising questions and having his finger in so many legislative and policy issues. Education's a little bit like that. In fact, it's a lot like that. And Hubert Humphrey believed in education. He spoke always of the importance of the university to him. He had a great faith that many of us still have as to what education can do. The university gets involved in all kinds of issues and questions. It's a natural fit, I think, between Hubert Humphrey and the university. And I think the Institute can be a truly exciting reflection of the best ideals that I think this very great man reflected.
I think it was the hope and the dream of Hubert Humphrey that the Institute would be a place where the great problems facing our society could be discussed, studied, and hopefully solved. That dream is shared by the Board of Regents. We are committed to developing the best public affairs institute in the country here at the University of Minnesota.
The Hubert Humphrey Institute of Public Affairs now occupies offices on the west bank of the campus. Its program, faculty, and facilities much the same as the old University School of Public Affairs. But before long, that will change. The Humphrey dream will become reality.
You recall that Humphrey, when he faced Congress for the last time, he said, first the dream and then the reality. Well, we're in the dreaming stage right now. And we're interested in really reinforcing what we already have, but particularly adding on what Humphrey wanted. Practitioners, drawing from the public agencies, postdocs, graduate students. We do really believe it's a living memorial as well as this physical institute here on campus.
To fulfill the dream, planners have set a goal of $20 million for the Humphrey Institute, and $14 million already has been raised, with more large gifts expected this year. Some $5 million will go into the structure itself, atop what is now the Science Classroom building on the East Bank overlooking the river. No specific plans have yet been drawn, but the vision is there.
Somehow the building must be expressive of the life of Hubert Humphrey in public service, so that when people arrive into the building, that is, enter the building, that they'll get some sense of the inspirational purposes of Hubert Humphrey's life. And this is going to be one of the really key challenges that we as architects are going to be facing. That is to give the building a character and a spirit that say something above and beyond the purposes of the building in terms of its programs and people. We'd like to see it as we see it as a living memorial, not just in terms of the programs, but in terms of the way the building expresses these programs. For instance, the Lincoln Memorial and the Jefferson Memorial inspire people, but people who go there only as spectators. We'd like to feel that what makes the Hubert Humphrey Institute a living memorial will be the people and programs that are there and that give it life. And our purpose in terms of developing an expressiveness for the building will be to give visibility to that spirit of Hubert Humphrey. The positioning of the new building right on the river bluff affords a lot of opportunity for identity. For instance, from the site, you can see the skyline of Minneapolis. You can look up and down the river gorge. There is a very neutral backdrop for this building. That is, the existing buildings on the east bank are all about uniform height. They all are basically the same material, that is a warm brick with limestone trim. And they'll provide an excellent background for what we'd like to think of as a sparkling building set against that background, built into the bluff of the river. The bridge also affords some opportunity, because as you approach the site from the west going east, you'll be able to see the building unfold as you move across the river from both the pedestrian level on top of the bridge and by automobile at the level below. There are excursion boats that move up and down the river. And I can just see the guide pointing out, and on your left is the Hubert Humphrey Institute. We're going to have to do a darn good job so that this says something about the commemorative purposes of the building.
I think that in Humphrey's mind, the Hubert Humphrey Institute of Public Affairs here would be the Minnesota version in a land-grant state university of what existed at Princeton in the Woodrow Wilson School in a major private institution. I think that notion appealed to Humphrey, the idea of a #1 high-quality public affairs institute in a land-grant state university in the Midwest, and he hoped to see that alternative developed here. I think that he thought of it in more populist terms, that it should pay attention to questions not just of international import, and of course the Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton has a heavy emphasis on national and international affairs. I think Humphrey intended that all levels of government should be emphasized here. In thinking about what he said and what he wrote about this question, we've come to the conclusion we want to pay substantial attention to legislative affairs, which again is an emphasis that's not present in many of the older, better established public affairs institutes. The Johnson Institute continues to have largely an executive focus, as does the Kennedy School and the Woodrow Wilson School.
But none make an emphasis
on the legislative aspect. And we think that's interesting, and we think that's a challenge. And of course, Humphrey's career as a senator, as the premier legislator in Washington, gives us additional encouragement to try to develop this.
The Humphrey Institute won't be completed for at least 2 years, and probably only after some predictable squabbles over curriculum, design, and mission. But a good chunk of that $20 million will go for fellowships and scholarships, so that future Hubert Humphreys won't have to sell sandwiches to fill their educational appetites.
Reach out and touch someone. Reach out, call up and just say hi. Reach out and touch someone.
Is he right?
Charlie?
Yeah, he loves a glove.
Yeah, looks like we're...
Is it Dad? Please stop it. No, he's going to be here.
Reach out and touch someone. Reach out, call up America.
Long distance, almost like being face to face.
All over America, Amoco is working to make our country less dependent on foreign oil.
Here on the Utah-Wyoming border, Amoco helped open up 8 new oil and natural gas fields where it was once thought unlikely deposits would ever be found. New all Americans.
Election night, 1978. A night of devastating defeat for the Minnesota DFL. And 30 years, almost to the day after Hubert Humphrey scored the state's first major DFL victory, his election to the U.S. Senate in 1948. But in 1978, Hubert was gone. And so, too, was his political magic.
If Hubert Humphrey could be with us today, he'd say, please, in my name, send Wendy Anderson back to the United States Senate.
But alas, it was not to be. The election computers typed out the message. Defeat for Wendell Anderson, the man who might have been helped the most by a living Hubert Humphrey. Defeat for Bob Short, running for the Senate seat left vacant by the death of Hubert Humphrey. Defeat for Governor Rudy Perpich, his a narrower loss than the others, but nonetheless stunning to the DFL. A clean sweep by the Republicans of the top 3 offices in the state. The worst political drubbing the DFL had taken in years.
It's very difficult to discount the effect of Humphrey. Carter tried to put it together here. Mondale tried to put it together here. Rick Scott certainly tried to put it together here. Everybody in the state within the party has tried to put together some sort of a victory. And what, as you said, Doug, has become painfully obvious to the DFL is probably the only person who could have put it together was Hubert Humphrey.
Do you think he could have?
Yes. Well, I think Humphrey had that kind of an effect. He was the party's emotional leader.
Without any question, the most serious loss that the Democratic Family Labor Party suffered was the loss of Hubert Humphrey. Hubert Humphrey was the main architect. He was the cement that held together a fractious and complicated political compound called the Democratic Farm Labor Party. He was an inspired leader. He was a charismatic personality. He built very carefully a bridge between the rural and small town dimension of the state and the urban following. He was a man of considerable vision and was the unquestioned leader of the Democratic Family Party. Don't forget, it's a party of professors and of farmers, of working men and of businessmen, of Red River Valley potato farmers and blue-collar workers in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and it's extraordinarily divergent kind of a group. And to bring that broad coalition into an effective organizational structure requires enormous leadership and talents of leadership that are very frankly not that easily replicable. There just aren't that many Hubert Humphreys.
Were you surprised by what happened to the party at the polls?
Yes, I was. I knew we were in trouble. I knew we were in bad trouble.
Why? What put the party in trouble?
Well, there were definite indications of it around the state. We had 3 issues in this state, Dave, that were one-issue problems, and people had become so involved in them that they had blinders on. They couldn't see beyond that one issue, and I think we've got to learn, people have got to learn to say, maybe just their one-way thinking isn't the only way to think, that they need to look at all sides.
Do you think
of
that
an
philosophy
issue.
could have kept the party together for the election?
I think he could have. I think he could have helped. He's gone through so many battles, went through so many battles that that he had a way with people, I'm not all sure too that people, our state is as liberal a state as it's thought of being. I think it was a Humphrey liberal state, and people in our state had learned to trust Humphrey's liberalism. Anything further than that it's a little bit in question. On the other hand, too, there were two candidates in the Republican Party who had never stood for office before or run for office before, who had never held an office, who had no record, and they looked like, and they were better candidates than the Republican Party had offered before. And I think the combination of things, it never in politics is any one particular thing. It takes a long time to make a change as big as that was. The polls I don't understand. I don't know why they were so wrong. Something must have gone wrong there that I don't know about.
You hear a lot, and you've heard it, I know, that had Hubert Humphrey been here, he could have prevented the loss.
And maybe he could have, and maybe he couldn't have. I don't know.
When she announced she would not seek election this November, Muriel Humphrey said, and I quote her, "Hubert left a legacy, left ideals that are just as much with us as if he were with us." And I pledge now to the people of the state of Minnesota, to whom this seat belongs, to devote all of my time, all of my energy, and all of my efforts to extending that legacy of service to humanity and that legacy of high ideals.
The relics of Hubert Humphrey's political and public career are here, buried in the depths of the Minnesota Historical Society. A giant room full of Humphrey memorabilia, trinkets and gifts, and campaign paraphernalia. Row upon row, shelf upon shelf, a lifetime of collectibles on display. It's a sight to behold, but one the public is not likely to see for some time. It's a closed collection for now, and no one is quite sure yet what will happen to it all. There are books by the thousands, all boxed up and labeled, most of them never read by Hubert. There are awards and plaques and certificates of honor by the hundreds, keys to dozens of cities, coins, medallions, medals, desk sets, autographed baseballs and footballs, even a bottle of holy water from Lourdes, France, and costly gifts from foreign dignitaries, ivory tables and table settings, elephant tusks from Africa, a statue from Indonesia, and pictures, 6,000 or more, covering the expanse of the Humphrey career. Surrounded by all of the reminders of the Humphrey life makes it harder than ever for us to believe that he's been gone a year. A year that brought us closer than ever to peace in the Middle East. A year that found formal diplomatic ties with China, of upheaval and violence in Iran. A year of unspeakable horrors in Guyana. And we may be sure Hubert Humphrey would have had something to say about all of that and more, and probably too much, and perhaps even the wrong thing. But somehow it was comforting to know that he was there watching the world with us. That we could expect from this flood, this outpouring of words, a drop of insight and wisdom and vision. And of course, that's what we miss so much. But life has a way of going on. Events don't stop to mourn men, which doesn't mean that we can't stop for a moment to remember.
Mom said, yeah, they'll take your picture if you wipe your eyes with the Kleenex. Well, that's all right, take it. Fellow that doesn't have any tears doesn't have any heart.
Hubert Humphrey Remembered, a WCCO television news special report, was brought to you in part by Northwestern Bell. Travel anywhere in the country quickly and economically by calling long distance.
He taught us all how to hope and how to love, how to win and how to lose. He taught us how to live. And finally, he taught us how to die.
The joy of his memory will last far longer than the pain and sorrow of his leaving.